Hey everyone, it's Jay.
And Sean.
And today we've got for you a little list of roles that Robert Downey Jr. did and that you may have missed. So, Robert Downey Jr., a long and storied career. I think he has had a career for longer than I've been alive. So we are not going to deal with all of the early stuff, because that guy has lots of roles on his resume.
Yes, he does.
He has already had some pretty major comebacks. And then in 2008, he became Iron Man. And actually, I would argue more than that, he became Tony Stark. I think he is the quintessential Tony Stark. And I will apologize. I will let you say some stuff, dear, because, I don't know this character outside of the movies, but I just feel like he embodies Tony Stark so well. He's so fun to watch in that role. But it's almost like, he identified with it so much, or perhaps it is so close to his own character that he's sort of lost his way in terms of other roles.
I think that's right. As far as Tony Stark, you're not alone. Iron Man before the Marvel Universe, cinematic universe, was not a huge deal. Mm-hmm. He was an Avenger, he's a founding Avenger, but his solo books were like way down the list of essential reading.
Okay.
He's not Spider-Man, he's not Wolverine, he's not the Incredible Hulk. Even Thor was a higher ranker than him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Robert Downey Jr. really made himself into Tony Stark, and I think his Tony Stark is more interesting than the guy was in the comics, because he's kind of a bitter old guy who's like a recovering alcoholic with a bad heart due to shrapnel being in there from like World War II or something.
Okay.
So he is Iron Man, and yeah, that's part of the problem. Because since he's been Iron Man, he hasn't done anything else that's good.
Well, he's hardly done anything else, period. He's had maybe 2 or 3 roles outside the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the last 12 years.
That's crazy.
So he's really,
he's been in a lot of the
They have
Marvel
pumped
movies.
out, exactly, so many of them. He has not had a lot of time for other stuff, and so this is who he has been for 12 years now. And unfortunately, his first role post-Avengers was Doolittle. And not only was the movie not very good, it was just the wrong pick for him. He was wrong for it. It really felt like a bad fit, bad acting from him. It was really unfortunate. But like I said, this guy has been the comeback kid already in Hollywood. He has had some major transformations. So I don't think it's lost for him. I think he definitely has lots of potential. But I've got some roles that, I don't know if they're known to everybody. Certainly some people will know them. But these are all like this century roles up until 2018.
Okay.
My favorites. Again, I am on him. He would have an entirely different set of favorites, and probably you do too.
Not exactly. I would not limit myself to the MCU when talking about Robert Downey Jr.
No, I know you would not. Yeah. I mean, he's an Oscar-nominated actor, so he's got some
He's got a good
fides.
catalog.
Yeah. So in my 5th position, I have The Singing Detective.
Very good. I knew this would be on your list.
Yes, I know. So
it's a great movie. Yeah, I think I had seen it before we met, but we definitely watched it early on.
So this one came out in 2003. It's not a test, because this one I think is such an odd duck. It is way okay if you don't care for it. In fact, I think critically it was not super well received. But I think the best part of the movie is definitely his performance.
He is the movie.
He is the movie.
This is not a movie without him in it.
No. I mean, okay, so if you're unfamiliar, and I bet a lot of you are, he plays a writer who is in the hospital. He's in a lot of pain. He has a skin condition. And so he is like drugged up and hallucinating. Really actively hallucinating and confused. He's kind of like in his head rewriting some of the novels that he has done in his career. And so his hallucinations, his fantasy is really kind of 1950s noir detective-y. But he kind of starts to like put himself in as the detective, and he's rewriting the story, and it is a musical, guys. Okay, so he does sing. And again, what we are seeing a lot of the time is him doped up in a hospital bed, and then, okay, now he's imagining that he is a detective who is singing through his drugged haze. So it is a really weird movie. And I love it. So it is okay if you don't, but if you just want a little dose of RDJ, I mean, what are you gonna lose? We're all in quarantine, we've got some extra time. I just think it is an exciting role. A super surprising thing from him. It's, for me, very fun to watch. I really enjoy that. I mean, it's a big risk. I love when people do like a big swing, and you know, some called it a myth. I think it's just kind of a cool piece of cinema, and I wish more people saw it.
If you're gonna miss, this is the way to miss.
Yes,
and
exactly.
not
Good
the
point.
Doolittle way.
Yeah, very true. I mean, you know, it is a divisive film. Even if it was critically loved, it would still be divisive because it is a weird duck, and I'm sure they always acknowledged that. It's not going to be for everyone, but I really admire it. Just so you know, though, he even in his drugged up haze, a lot of his fantasies are pretty sexy. So it's a noir detective film, but with like a XXX rating. So just be, you know, okay with that. It is a disturbing movie. It is a funny movie. I think it's really funny. And Roger Ebert actually talked about it a few years after its release and said, in fact, on repeated viewing, he has grown to quite enjoy it and appreciate it. So
I always liked that about Ebert. Mm-hmm. He would always, like, if he felt he got a movie wrong, mm-hmm. he would mention it. He mm-hmm. would not try and bury that and say, like, pretend that what he had said 10 years ago was still his opinion. Mm-hmm. He allowed himself to change and evolve, and I thought that was really cool.
Yes. And I mean, especially with this movie, unnecessary, because, you know, the consensus was that it was maybe not a big critical hit, so he certainly could have...
Oh, sure, he would have fit right in. Yeah, yes. He's not alone on this point of view.
No, so this was really his feeling. And I mean, to even go back to the movie, I think, shows a certain respect for it. So I do challenge you to check it out, if you love RDJ as much as we do. So at number 4, I'm going to say Fur. Fur, an imaginary portrait of Diane Arbus. So Diane Arbus, you may recall, is a real-life American photographer. Again, let's go back to the... in the title, it does say an imaginary portrait. So this is not meant to be a biopic. It's just imagining how she got to be the photographer she became. Because at the beginning of this movie, she is living in an apartment with her husband and serving as a photographer's assistant to him. But because she's kind of close to it, she does have an interest in taking pictures. And then one day, somebody moves into their building. It is Robert Downey Jr. I should mention it's Nicole Kidman who is playing Diane Arbus. So the guy who moves in is a real mystery, always clothed fully head to toe. And we come to find out it's because he has some sort of, and this is not a medical diagnosis, like a werewolfish disease where his whole body is covered in fur, his whole body. So those two, though, spend more and more time together, and he sort of introduces her to the marginalized communities that she otherwise, had never really had the opportunity to know, since she came from a pretty wealthy and privileged background. And the real Diane Arbus really did take photos of a lot of underprivileged community members, marginalized people, parts of society that were not usually represented in art. So that is a true aspect. So the film is imagining how this came to be, and Robert Downey Jr. is the strange character who serves as the bridge. So you may guess that they're not going to stay platonic friends the whole time. And whether or not fur play comes into things is you have to watch it to know the answer, I guess. Isn't that right?
Or you can just make your assumptions now.
You could. Have you seen this one?
I don't think I have.
Okay. Well, I think you should.
Okay.
I do. I think it's obviously it's, another like oddball character in his repertoire, but I think it's a very interesting one. And the fact that he represents the most marginalized, the most underrepresented people, while also being, very charming and very, very much a leading man in the movie, I think is very indicative of the work she came to love and to be known for.
It's an interesting imaginary tale.
Yes, it is. Maybe not so imaginary.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. You
But we
have
like to
guess
speculate,
that too.
don't we?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so number 3, Charlie Bartlett.
Yeah, I have seen this.
I know. I like this one a lot.
This also has Anton Yelchin, right?
Yes. Anton Yelchin plays Charlie Bartlett, a high school kid. So he's kind of like a sweet and a smart kid, but he has a knack for getting into trouble. He's too smart, and he's always thinking up schemes that always get him thrown out of all of the private schools his mother has ever sent him to. So he winds up in public school, where he is almost immediately an outcast. I mean, he's no longer in private school, but he's still showing up with his blazer and his attaché case.
That'll do it.
So he's a little picked on, but he quickly carves out a niche for himself. I think he likes to think of himself as the school psychiatrist. Other people might call him a drug dealer, because as soon as he diagnoses someone, he goes to his own psychiatrist and like a whole cabal of psychiatrists really to fake the symptoms and get the pills to give these kids and sell them to them. Meanwhile, he also becomes interested in a very beautiful student played by Kat Dennings, who happens to be the principal's daughter. And the principal is just like an obsessed guy. He's practically stalking his students. He knows there's something, up with this Charlie Bartlett character. And the principal is, of course, played by Robert Downey Jr. So it's kind of a fun reversal, because, in the 80s, he would have played the Charlie Bartlett,
yeah.
Just sort of like Matthew Broderick is playing that principal in the Netflix series Daybreak. It's Ferris Bueller for the apocalypse. This one too,
and he's plays the Mr. Rooney, yeah.
That's the least flattering thing you've ever said about anyone. But anyways, definitely Robert Downey Jr. gets to try on those shoes in this movie. And I think and he has his own demons, I should say. Like he's not just the principal, but he's a guy who's got some weight on his shoulder. And things are not going well. And so he really wants a win. He really wants to figure this shit out. So he is on top of it. And yeah, they're sworn enemies, but maybe they respect each other.
Grudgingly.
Mm-hmm. Coming in at number 2, and everyone would have guessed it would be my number 1, Zodiac.
That's a great movie. It's just a great movie.
Yes.
This movie is one that I had seen when it came out, and every time I watch it, I have sort of a renewed appreciation for it, of just how well this came together of Mark Ruffalo, mm-hmm. Robert Downey Jr., and David Fincher telling the tale. Jake Gyllenhaal telling the tale of this serial killer who was never caught. Mm-hmm. And yet they make it such a cool whodunit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really keeps the mystery. Like it feels like a thriller, even though we know how it, not even how it ends, but how it doesn't end. It's really well done. And there are a lot of big names in it, but you don't feel shortchanged. So it's a really good balancing act, considering there are a lot of moving parts to this story. And Robert Downey Jr. is one of the wheels, the main wheels. He plays a reporter. And, it's a very good role for him.
Yes, it is. Because he has that little crazy edge to him, the maverick side that RDJ does so well.
Yes, that's right. And he has a good energy for bouncing stuff off people too. So it is such a good movie.
Yes, it is.
So even if you've seen it, you
Revisit.
really do. Yeah, it is one of those movies you can revisit because there is so much to it. And I think once you know the movie, you can kind of sit back and like not worry about who's going to get killed next and just really watch the players doing their thing, which is cool.
Yeah.
So my number one, Sean, my number one is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yes.
And I won't apologize for it. I really like this movie. Gosh, I'll have a hard time explaining how this can even go above Zodiac, but I really love this movie.
Well, I think it's more of it's a smaller film. It's more centered around Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Is it Val Kilmer also?
Yes, it is.
The two of them are really, really good in this movie.
Yeah. So, Robert Downey Jr. is playing a thief. And he's evading the cops, and he just like ducks into a casting session where he is immediately hired to be in a movie. So it worked out well for him. So he ends up sort of being paired with a private investigator played by Val Kilmer. So he's supposed to be following him to like learn for his role. But he kind of, he's at a big Hollywood party, and he kind of insinuates to some of the ladies that he himself is a PI, which gets him into a lot of trouble because almost immediately there's like murder and suicide and a whole story that somehow he is caught up in, and people think he can solve it, even though, he's just a thief pretending to be an actor, pretending to be a PI. He has no business being in any of these things. But I think it's kind of like it's a thriller, it's action. And I just, I love how it kind of pokes at Hollywood, and there's a lot of surprises. And, it's just kind of it's a tongue-in-cheek kind of role where he's winking a lot at us, and I just find it so fun.
It is. And it's another one where he's on his game, his chemistry is 100% turned up. And Val Kilmer too, who has had a leading man status of his own, and the two of them, they really are good together in that movie.
Yeah. It's surprising how well they fit together. It's Shane Black. So, he's been kind of good at making
He does the action, comedy,
that's right.
big budget, two guys, just odd couple thrown together.
Yes.
That's a Shane Black specialty.
Yes. So I think this is a really good one, a really fun one. It's easy for people to enjoy it. There's a lot going on. So it feels overwhelming, and I think it's meant to feel that way because he has been completely thrown off balance by accidentally tripping into this crime. But yeah, I really enjoy it.
Good picks, babe.
Well, thank you, dear. I just felt like, we were kind of harsh about Doolittle, and I think it deserves it. I don't think it's a good movie, and I won't ever say that it is. But, he is one of our favorite actors, and we want to see him do some good stuff, but until we do, there's other stuff that we can revisit.
And that's a better option than watching Doolittle.
That's right.
If you haven't suffered through it yet.
Or The Judge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's been questionable. He's been so Tony Stark that, everything else is kind of not done as well. But I think he's got another Sherlock movie in the works.
Well, maybe that'll help get him back on track.
Yeah. So hopefully that is the path forward. And I'm looking forward to it because it does have a lot of big hits. So many that you forget about some of them.
Yeah, I couldn't name you those 5 movies, but they are all very good films.
They are. So check them out if you have time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, guys.